Hey guys, Ben from Summit Outfitters. Just had a very exciting couple of requests to do this video just about people that are getting into swim bait fishing for just big lure fishing in Lake Hilton during winter for cod. We'll just be going through all the appropriate gear and all the gear that you should have in your tackle box when you're out in the lake. So we'll start off with the line, reels and some of the rods that you can use for casting those big lures. Now we'll start off with the line. So generally I'll run a 40 to 50 pound braid depending on what I'm doing. There's a lot of people out there that will run straight monofilament for swimbait fishing, soft swim baits. I haven't quite started using monofilament yet. I still use braid because I haven't had many problems with braid. I've had a couple of missed hookups, but I think that was just due to the fish not eating it properly or just hitting it foul. Yeah, I run about 50 to 40 pound and it's appropriate to run that kind of braid. A lot of people run heavier, but I think 50 to 40 pound is perfect, and it is good to have the right gear to be throwing bigger lures, because stuff like your break-offs, backlashes, just so you don't have to be throwing $50 to $60 off a rod every time you're not running the right line and then it pops. And even running the right knot is important. So if you get online and learn how to tie some knots the right way if you're getting into it. And a lot of people think that when you start swimbait fishing or start using these big cod lures that you're going to have to break the bank. You don't have to. It's like any other gear. You have intermediate, starter level, or your high-end stuff, but just because it's intermediate or start doesn't mean that it's no good. It does the job, it throws the lures, and you can land those fish. It's just about having the appropriate gear for actually fishing and getting out there. So generally I'll run in the lake if you're solely chasing bigger fish and casting bigger lures. This is a Mirasami big bait versatile, so it's a 752, so it's your sort of normal size length swim bait rod, and cast weight on this fella is 1 to 6 ounce. So yeah, all your swim baits pretty much. So yeah, you don't need to spend a whole lot of money to have that right setup. You've got high-end stuff and entry-level stuff which will do the job. Like that's a swim bait too, and that's a hell of a lot of a price difference compared to other rods you can get, and it's still a great rod and it'll do the job. Now, a reel that you would generally match that up with is a 300 size reel. So there's lots of different reels that you can buy as well that are 300 size. Bigger reel means more power, more control over the fish, and if you had a small reel on a big rod, it just wouldn't fit right, it wouldn't be right, it wouldn't feel right. So it's important to have the right reel and the right rod set up. So yeah, 300 size reel, bigger profile, holds a lot more line, bigger handle. It's just bigger everything in general. Yeah, get online and have a look at what prices you can find and what stuff that you can get for your budget. Another thing too is your leader. So it's very similar to what pound braid you're running. A lot of people think it's odd or don't like running a similar pound leader to the braid that they're running, but I actually find it better, especially for tying knots. That diameter of the braid and the mono can be similar, so it can run through your guides easier on the rod. But yeah, 40 to 50 pound, same sort of thing. That'll cover your surface lures, your soft swim baits, hard swim baits, all that jazz. Now I've got a couple of examples of all of the gear that I would run. This is all the lures that I would run, just examples. There's plenty more colours and sizes and things that you can choose from when it comes to lures. We're pretty spoilt with gear these days in any fishing industry now. So the first thing that I will start with is a spinnerbait. Now 1 ounce spinnerbait, and definitely a Colorado blade in winter, because it moves slower, has a bigger vibration and a larger flash and thump through the water. So a very popular one is a double bladed spinnerbait. So what that is that's 2 blades side by side that are spinning side by side, or a single Colorado. And generally you'll fish those on your rock walls and down a bit deeper in the timber, or you can fish them high up, whatever. Another lure, which is basically you fishing it a very similar way, is a swim jig, and that's basically a spinnerbait without a blade, and that's a bit more of a subtle presentation. Now we'll move on to the soft swimbait side of things. We've just got a couple of examples of what are a good lure and what you can do. I didn't get all the hooks and rigging stuff for them all because there's many different ways people can do depending on what you want to do. So yeah, you've got plastics that aren't rigged and that are rigged depending on what you want to fish. Like you can fish a weedless hook, which a weedless hook will sit real close into the plastic, goes through the belly. With a weedless setup, you want something that has a belly slit in it. So I'll open this plastic up and explain what that is. So it's basically a slit for the hook to sit in, and that basically runs to the top there, and you can fish that lure amongst all the snags with a less chance of getting snagged because the hook isn't exposed as much. So you can run lures like that. A very popular size in swimbait fishing. Soft swimbaits are 8-inch lure, so 8-inch mag drafts, 9-inch. It's pretty similar size, so it's an inch bigger pretty much. That's a very popular size for all size fish. So fish from 65 to metre plus is what you'll get those on. A lot of people are using bigger lures on live technology because obviously they can target those fish that they know are going to be big. When you're blind casting, you're sort of just flicking that lure out there and trying to get that bite from any fish generally. So yeah, soft swim baits. So an 8-inch mag draft is a very, very popular lake yielding lure. So yeah, your soft swim baits in that size, or if you want to run something a bit of a smaller profile, if they're a bit more picky, if they're sort of more chasing a smaller bait. Sometimes fish aren't always chasing a big lure, so saying elephants eat peanuts, so you can catch them on small lures. But generally, it's just still a pretty big lure. So yeah, what's this one? 6.8-inch plastic, and you can rig that with a jig head or a weedless hook. Even a little flashy blader in the bottom there can entice them a bit more. But yeah, that's a great lure. Great lure. Right, we'll move to hard swim baits. So this is another example. There's plenty of different hard swim baits out there and different types of lures you can use out there. They do this pretty similar thing. That's just a gantrel, dry gantrel. Same sort of theory as when the fish are chasing something a bit smaller or they want something a bit bigger. You have two different sizes in your box when you're out there on the lake. So, and there's plenty of different colours you can choose from, whatever colour that you have confidence in. I stick to natural colours. I like natural colours, which makes sense, especially if the lake's getting pressured. Yeah, so two different sizes in those. There's plenty of different lures out there, like I said, that you can use that'll do the same thing. And they've got chin weights, so you can let it sink a bit deeper. And that slow moving lure, there's plenty of videos out there of people catching and getting results on those. And then yeah, another type of swim bait which has a different type of action but a different profile as well for fish that might be feeding on a trout or something like that. If if there's trout in the area and the cod are chasing generally trout, then you'll match the hatch and change it to the colour and size and shape of that fish. I don't generally run a diver, I wouldn't run in winter. I wouldn't really run, unless you're trolling of course, I wouldn't really be casting a stump jumper or any of your divers that you use in summer. I just think that the bigger fish, they will 100% eat them. I just think that they're not as common to be used and they're not as effective as a swim bait or a surface lure or something like that, or a big spinnerbait in winter. But that's the thing too, is something like a mega bass big N is sort of like half swim bait, half diver. It kind of looks like a swim bait in the water, a one-piece swim bait, and that's super good if you want to really slow wind a rock wall or a bank. You just want to roll it in, give it a bit of a twitch or a bit of a pause, and that fish can decide if it wants to come up and eat that lure if it's having commitment issues. So you can pause it basically. And we'll move on to surface. Surface is the most exciting and is my favourite way to chase Murray cod. It is the most awesome type of fishing you can do for them, I personally think. I think them coming up to your lure and actually exploding or eating your lure is just very exciting, gives you a good adrenaline pump too, especially if it's a big fish. Yeah, so there's a couple different types of surface lures. There's subsurface and then there's completely surface paddlers. So you've got a paddler, that's a great lure. Kingfisher Bella, that's a really good lure. Good sound, moves slow, and perfect size for winter. Big surface lures are great for winter. I see people casting surface lures that should be used in the river or for smaller fish during summer, in winter for big cod. And look, I'm not saying that they won't work, but it's just better off to run a bigger lure for them. So you've got two different types of surface lures. Well, there's more different types of surface lures. Obviously, there's frogs and all that kind of other stuff, but there's a wake bait and a paddler. Wake bait just sits under the surface. Sometimes most of the lure can be basically wiggling on top of the water, but the head's diving down underneath, making it a more subtle but loud underwater profile. So if the fish aren't quite taking a surface paddler, then you can chuck something that's a bit more silent that could be a bit deadly. Yeah, just get out there on the water, and biggest part of it is just putting in time and effort, and the key to getting big fish in a lake that's hard to fish is just time on the water. You start to work things out eventually, and adding things up, keeping your knots correct, because the last thing you want to do is fish a week, 2 weeks or a month to try and get a bite, and you finally do, and then something goes wrong. Even adding something like scent on your lure, so something like a scent, rubbing a bit of scent on your plastic or your spinnerbait blade can also create a bite out of a fish that possibly is a bit more picky. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video and learnt a little bit. I'll be doing more videos like this, and if you have any questions that you want to talk in person, then send us a message on Instagram, and even drop into Summit Outfitters where I work and have a talk. More than happy to have a chat and explain to you some areas and good places to go and try and get onto a Murray cod. And it's good to always see new faces and talk to new people. I love that, and I think it's great to, especially in the fishing world, you can help people out and get more people stuck into it. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you later.